Going up in thousands of races across the land. And in the quintessential running competition, well, they call it the marathon. Here in Chicago, 12,000 have gathered on this windy morning to run 26 miles, 385 yards. Some just to run, and some here have the power to win. We're waiting for the start. The gun is up. 12,000. The 1985 Chicago Marathon is underway. Doctors, lawyers, brothers, sisters, each with their own private reason to run this race. But there's some, as I mentioned, with the power to win. The field of elite runners, those who could win or set a record, it's really a who's who of magnificent runners. Could be at least one world record today. Let's take a look at the field. From Wales has come defending champion Steve Jones, whose withering kick last year decimated the competition and smashed the world record. This year, Jones has predicted the race in Chicago will be even faster. But to win here, he'll have to survive world champion Robert DeCastella, the powerful Australian who has not run a marathon since last year's Chicago. He's trained all year with one goal: beat Steve Jones. The man in the middle, Djama, who leads a squad of runners who have firmly placed the country of Djibouti among the world-class powers in the marathon. Djama has run the 8th fastest marathon in history.
But I noticed the tension, a kind of a tension that you normally see at a top marathon like the Olympics. One of the guys who was most excited was Salazar. I'm going to be riding the motorcycle sidecar right in front of the leaders for the entire race, hopefully to try and tell you what's happening right when it happens. It's perfect weather conditions today. There's not a breath of air, perfect temperature, 55 degrees. I expect a tight race between DeCastella from Australia, Jones from Wales, and Djama from the small country of Djibouti. Those three runners are going to be the top ones to look for there. In the women's race, we have Benoit and Kristensen, the two top women marathoners in the world. They're going to have a tough race. Back to John.
All right, Alberto, thank you very much. Now, as they begin to approach the 1 mile mark, number 57 there is Carl Thackeray. He's in the lead of Chicago's marathon. He's from Sheffield, England, home of great runners Brendan Foster and Steve Cram. He's a groundskeeper at Sheffield University, and he was hired as the rabbit here to take the race out fast. We'll be back with more of Chicago's marathon after this. In 9:28, and Tony, that is extremely fast.
Well, you saw the projected time, John. If they keep going like this, they'll run 2:04. The book tells us they're not going to run 2:04.
The world's record is 2:07.11. That was set by Carlos Lopes. Now, number 57 in the lead right there is Carl Thackeray from Sheffield, England. He is not expected to even finish this race. He was hired by the race director to take the race out fast, and that's what's happening right now. Number 1, who has just moved into the lead there, is Steve Jones. He's a defending champion and former world record holder. The man in the middle there is Simeon Keegan, and I'm very surprised that he's with the leaders at this point, at this fast a pace.
To be honest with you, John, Simeon Keegan is a very well-known front runner. That's the way he always runs. Simeon Keegan in this race 3 years ago, when he got third place rather, he was leading through 24.5 miles before he died off, and Hugh Jones and Joe Ensal passed him. But Keegan is a front runner.
All right, now they began, of course, in Daly Plaza, 26.2 miles to the finish. Let's take a look with Craig Masback.
From the dual start near Daly Plaza and the sculpture Picasso made for the city, the runners head north before swinging south along the Gold Coast, one of Chicago's most affluent areas, to the John Hancock Building, part of the magnificent Mile Shopping District. Then it's past Soldier Field, home of the undefeated Chicago Bears. The race turns north near Comiskey Park, where the White Sox play, and then heads through the gateway to Chinatown and Chicago's other ethnic communities, the Pilsen Mexican community, Little Italy, and Greektown, which sits in the shadow of the Sears Tower, the world's tallest building with 110 stories. From there it's through Old Town, Chicago's Greenwich Village, near the point where Steve Jones made his move last year, and near Wrigley Field, home of the Wait Till Next Year Cubs. The race swings onto Montrose Avenue, and then the runners begin the final 2.5 miles on Lakeshore Drive, turning into Lincoln Park and sprinting the last quarter mile to the finish.
Back here at America's Marathon, and the 3 men in the lead right now. In the white singlet there, on the left of your screen, is Steve Jones, the Royal Air Force Corporal from Wales. Behind him in the red, number 57, is Carl Thackeray, and that's Simeon Keegan, the Kenyan behind them. Now, in the women's race, The women went through 2 miles in 10:16, and we'll keep you up to date on that. That is a projected finish time, back of 3. There's Jones with Thackeray behind him and Keegan in 3rd place.
You know, John, 4:46, 4:42 for the first miles here last year, 4:57, 9:58. They're running the first part of this race like they ran the last part of the race last year. They're going for the record. There's no doubt about it. Jones is committed. He said 4 or 5 men are capable of running a world record out there today. What that really means is I'm capable of running 2:7:12 or under. Steve Jones, the big question about Steve Jones today is whether or not he has lost respect for the distance. The first competitor one always has is not your other competitors, but the distance itself.
Let's put things in perspective here, because Steve Jones, the former world record holder and the defending champion here, has that 10,000 meter speed. Simeon Keegan behind him, the Kenyan, finished 3rd in 83 America's Marathon. He had a cold last year and finished 17th. But the question about Keegan is, has he over-raced? He's run 16 major road races in the last 9 months. He's won 6 of them. The word is he's tapered off a bit in the last month. Again, the gentleman in 3rd place from Sheffield is Carl Thackeray, and he's expected only to go through 13 miles.
Well, they slowed down just a bit, John. I mean, not really, but 4:48 for that 3rd mile.
In the race here, and while we were talking about money, a man who has paid a couple of $1,000s to take the race out as a rabbit, Carl Thackeray, has dropped from the race. And so we have Steve Jones, number 1 on the right, and Keegan on the left. We should mention, Tony, about why these athletes are able to remain amateurs and still take this money.
John, it's semantics, simple as that. They have a thing called TAC Trust. The TAC, the Athletics Congress, the national governing body of the sport here in this country, set up in 1982 the TAC Trust, where quote-unquote amateur athletes could be paid money into a trust fund, which they can then take out to pay for their expenses for training purposes. Of course, some guys need $40,000 automobiles and $250,000 homes in order to make their training that much better. It really is just a way to getting rid of the shamateurism, which has existed for decades. There was always under-the-table money. Everyone knew about it to the point where they could not carry the burden of that sham anymore.
So as the runners, these two, Keegan and Jones, turn onto the Michigan Avenue Bridge, it's still this tiny pack of 2. We'll be back with more of America's Marathon in a moment. Fixes Phantom fighter jets for less than $10,000 a year. He and Simeon Keegan, behind him there, are now performing surgery on the rest of some of the finest marathoners in the world. You saw the graphic there that indicates if they were to keep this up, if they can keep this impossible pace up, Tony Revis, they will perform surgery on the world record.
Look at Simeon Keegan's face, John. I mean, he's showing the strain of having gone more than 3/4 of a marathon, and yet they're just past the 10,000 meter mark. Now, just to give you a better idea, next to the marathon, the most often run racing course in America is 10,000 meters. And they went through 10,000 meters in under 29 minutes and 30 seconds. That wins 95% of all 10,000 meter races in America. That's how fast Steve Jones is going, and he's opening up right now on Simeon Keegan.
By the way, they're just passing Soldier Field, home of the undefeated Chicago Bears.
Keegan is wondering, what was it that made me decide that that was going to be a good idea to go with Jones?
Yeah, he looks like he's tiring there. You can see the rest of the pack back there over their shoulders. Keegan was considered a favorite to finish in the top 10 in Los Angeles in '84, but he was kept off the Kenyan team by a dispute with his national officials. He was sick for America's Marathon last year, and with a sore knee from a moped accident this August, the guy has a lot of hard luck, and it looks like Steve Jones is exacerbating that now.
Back in Rotterdam, that's the world record time that we've been talking about on the broadcast, 2:07:11 point, but they rounded up to 12. Carlos Lopez had 2 men as windbreakers in front of him for the first half of that race, breaking the wind and setting him up. It was a non-competitive marathon. There were no athletes in Lopez's category there. Steve Jones is in a field way back in the distance of the finest marathoners that have been collected in one location since the LA Olympics last August. So he's turning a very competitive marathon into a time trial, which is outstanding, it's either it's confidence of the first magnitude, or it's, I don't know what, it's arrogance?
Well, the question is, what has happened as you look at the rest of the pack over the shoulder here? What's happened to Robert DeCastella, the world champion, and a man who hasn't raced since last year, who was really pointing to win this race? What's happened to the rest of the field?
I think the rest of the field is running what they believe to be exceptionally fast marathon pace. And when Steve Jones took off in the manner that he did, they said, that's stupid. I'm not going to, he'll die. I mean, that has to be what they thought. They said, we're going to go with anything that anyone does unless it's ignorant. And that must be on their minds. If we just maintain ourselves in a sensible fashion, he has to die. That's what they're saying to themselves. But this is Steve Jones. This is the guy that last year on this course ran 2:08:05 world record. So this is not some impetuous youth. This is a world-class world beater out there doing that. So they really must be thinking about this very seriously.
And now, as you're watching, Steve Jones is putting away the man who was his competition up until this point.
You know who the competition is? His watch. We talked about Ingrid Kristensen on the women having one competitor to watch. Well, it's turned all the way around. There's a race with the women. There's a time trial now out there with Steve Jones. It seems like he said, I'm going for it. I don't care what anyone else does. I'm going for it.
This, by the way, is really the only hill, such as it is, on the Chicago course up by McCormick Place.
It's an exit off of Lakeshore Drive up to McCormick Place.
So Steve Jones has at least things well in hand in Chicago. And all alone is Steve Jones. Jones just through the 8th mile. And Steve Jones, the RAF corporal from Wales, who snatched this race away from some of the greats last year, including Robert DeCastella, 1983 world champion, is doing the same thing that Benoit, Samuelson, and Kristensen are doing.
John, you know what this reminds me of is earlier this year's Boston Marathon when Jeff Smith, without nearly the competition at his back that Steve Jones has here in Chicago, tried to run a world record from the front. He got as far as 21 miles, then hit the wall and actually stopped, ending up running 2:14. Steve Jones is running an heroic race.
He ran that 8th mile, by the way, in 4 minutes, 37 seconds. He told us on Friday that he's made some mistakes in the past where he'd run with the pack and then be asleep when someone made a move. Now he prefers to make the moves on his own. There you see the world record, 2:07:12. Now, that is a record that's owned by Carlos Loesch. The projected finish at this pace would be 2:03:33. Can a human being run that fast?
One would think not. One would think not, but we're talking about Steve Jones, and everyone has tremendous respect for this guy, even though he only started marathoning 2 marathons ago. Chicago last year, London this year. He might be a new sort of breed. He might be a new breed of athlete. Everyone wondered whether or not, as I mentioned earlier, Steve had lost respect for the distance. He is so confident in his abilities. He says, I know what I'm capable of for the second half of a marathon. What I don't know is what I'm capable of after a first half that's very fast. That's what he's after today, to see how fast he can run the second half after a blistering first half.
This man has only completed 2 marathons. He won them both, and just that's a great look at Steve Jones. What a smooth stride. He's the ultimate sportsman. While winning the Dayton Half Marathon in 1984 during a heavy rain, he actually stopped to help a wheelchair racer who had fallen over, then continued and won the race. Last year, Jones grabbed, if you remember, Jones grabbed Jeff Smith and literally carried him for about 6 strides when Smith fell going around a corner. And then when he dropped out of 1983's America's Marathon after stepping in a pothole and turning his ankle, he tried to return the $1,500 in appearance money from race director Bob Wright. Of course, Bob refused, but he is the consummate gentleman. Steve Jones. Let's take a look at this young man.
I smoked a lot as a child, drank a lot. I started smoking when I was 11, smoked for 7 years. Before deciding to give it up and concentrate on the running.
Jones has beat the world champion. He's beat the Olympic champion. Now he's trying to beat the clock. Steve Jones. He's done it. A new world record. His annual 28 days leave in Utah, training for the Chicago Marathon. He uses this time to bring his family along on vacation. Steve Jones trying to run away with America's Marathon. And Tony doing a pretty good job of it at this point.
We don't even know who's second place. Look how far in the distance we see no one. All we see are spectators on the course and a wheelchair athlete and a motorcycle escort. There's the 9-mile mark. I see 42:23 on my watch, which means he ran another 4:40 mile or sorts. Steve Jones is making a shambles. We talked to him all this week. He said he thought the Carlos Loesch 2:7:12 record was soft. He said it was soft, and he's out to prove that today.
I'll tell you, the day after last year's record here in Chicago, I jumped on a plane for London to cover another event, and I turned on the television in my hotel room, and on the BBC were pictures only of Steve Jones breaking the record and fixing Phantom fighter jets. We'll be back. And the people here, the crowds are thicker here. They turned out to see who will win the 1985 Chicago Marathon. Now, there are many things to say about this city of Chicago. One thing you really shouldn't say is that it's the second city. A man who knows this city very well is Bill Curtis. Steve Jones from Wales with the rest of the pack, better than a minute 15 behind him. That pack includes Robert DeCastella, number 2 in the lead there. Number 28 is Jose Gomez from Mexico City. In the center of your screen, number 21 is Mark Kerp from Lee Summit, Missouri. And Kerp is the world record holder at the half marathon. I'm wondering, Tony Revis, if these guys aren't just hanging on here hoping that Jones is going to explode.
That's the only hope they're going to get. If Steve Jones continues at the pace he's on, they will not catch him. Steve Jones has run incredibly fast times through the first half marathon, and there's no way you would think on paper he could continue that pace. They're hoping that he can't continue that pace.
All right, again, now, we started the marathon early this morning, 8:45, and it began in Daley Plaza. Mind you, a wind of 12 miles an hour. It's amazing that they ran the first part of that marathon so fast.
They were running into the wind. Now the wind is coming over Steve Jones' right shoulder. It's coming over his right shoulder, and he should have the wind sort of with him the rest of the way. Again, running 4:41s, 4:44s. The rest of the men are running world record pace. The point is he has a minute and 15-second lead or more, and yet the whole pack behind him is still running on a world record pace of their own.
Joan Benoit Samuelson has had a...
Of course, his wife Lisa will be running in next week's New York Marathon, a race that Network 10 will also be covering.
She was a late withdrawal from this one, Bruce.
Yes, she came to Canberra and ran in the World Cup and didn't finish in the 10,000 metres, and has said that she wanted the extra week to recover. The field next week isn't as strong. Greta Bates is in the race, but Lisa would have a great chance of finishing in the place getters there. Jones, I hope we can get a mile indication soon, because I'd just love to know exactly what he's still running these splits in. He doesn't appear, looking at him, to have slowed up a great deal. He certainly wouldn't have quickened.
It would be very significant, I think, if he's just dropped off even as much as 2 or 3 seconds a mile.
The one runner we haven't seen in the picture so far, Bruce, is Wolfgang Kruger of West Germany. His best time of 2:11:55. He finished third in the at Houston this year, but he won the half marathon here in Lane Cove in Sydney, which a lot of Sydney people would remember. At 38's the oldest man in the elite runners. But they all remember that performance in Sydney earlier this year.
Just been told, Dave, that the women are through the 14-mile mark in 2.5 minutes faster than they were last year. Motta ran 2:26 last year. So converting that, they're probably around 2:21 pace.
2:20, yep.
2:21, so they're certainly slowed up. It may turn into a battle. They'll give the world's best away and concentrate on who's going to win.
Well, I think once they surrender in their own minds and start to slow the pace, I think it then becomes a lot more probable that someone like Motta from the chasing group can actually pick them up. Once they settle into more thinking about who's going to win the race than actually concentrating on running it, that's who it will come for the 2 leaders.
What's best for DeCastella at this stage? Does he want that pack to be with him for as long as possible? He's virtually running on his own. He's 4 or 5 metres in front of the group.
I think at this stage, even at this stage, with probably 10 miles to run, for Rob, it's still he's running his own race now. I think he's alone as much as Jones is, because he's decided that he's going to keep that group going. 17 miles in about 1:20:38.
You mentioned the improvement there in the performance of the women at that point of the race last year. We just wonder, Bruce, just how far the improvement in times can go, because if we look at Rosa Motta's time last year of 2:26:01, that was 5 minutes and 10 seconds faster than her first marathon just 2 years before. So there was a 5-minute improvement in 2 years.
In the meantime, though, she had improved in the Olympic Games to 2:26:57, so it had been a gradual improvement. But you are right, 5 minutes in a race in 1 year is an enormous improvement, and But if Motta can run around 2:23 this year, she'll be well satisfied. And if she does, she might still get into the finish. What's that?
Bruce, my quick mental calculations still have Jones on 4:45 mile rate, which will give him a finishing time of about 2:04.30.
Because mentally, this is a real test ring.
Yeah, maybe too. I guess perhaps next year he's got a major championship race coming up, and he's yet to run a major championship marathon. Perhaps he sort of feels that Chicago Marathon 1985 is a good time to just test his own mental toughness by running this kind of a race.
I'll tell you what, the old steeplechase is going pretty well there too.
Ken Martin, yes, with the
very well.
Black shorts and the look like the Athletics West top on, or the red across with the white singlet. He's only about 5 or 6 metres behind Robert DeCastella.
As we mentioned earlier, he's only run the 2 marathons at Sacramento and Pittsburgh with success on both occasions.
Yes, 2:11 and 23 in the first one, and then 2:12.57. But the Pittsburgh run was in poor conditions. Deke's just got, there was a clock there which would have said about 1:23, so it must have been a marker there for DeCastella. It may have been the 17-mile mark, do you think?
It may have been.
I hope not, because it would mean they're a long way behind.
Well, it would still put them at about 1:20 behind. They were 1:30 behind at halfway, so that's a significant gain in the...
Is that 1:20 or 2:20?
1:20. Gee, my mental arithmetic's going to the pack, Bruce. Let's just ignore that one for a minute until we get a confirmation.
There's Kerp 21, 28 is Gomez. There's Poli, the tall Italian with the longish hair. Now on the left, you just can't quite see him in the black, is Jorgensen. Yes, they're telling us that the Mexican is Gomez, who in fact wasn't in the elite group that we were given. Jama is still in that group. I don't think that could have been the 7 mile mark.
No, it couldn't have been, because that would mean that they had lost another minute to Jones.
Well, it's a great performance by Mark Kerp, the American, in his first ever marathon. That was him in 21, just camped on DeCastella's right shoulder. But there's the leader of the Chicago Marathon, Steve Jones.
And
the major races, I think Frank Shorter's done the commentary on a couple of Greta Waits' world best times in the New York Marathon. Cardong, as I said, has done it. Of course, you've got to be a pretty good runner to run at that kind of pace and talk coherently anyway. We're having enough trouble just sitting here.
Jones has a big choice to make next year if he runs the major championships, either the Commonwealth Games or the European Championships. The whisper is at the moment that Jones will run in Europe, in Stuttgart, which I think is about 3 weeks after the Commonwealth Games, and Charlie Spedding will probably run the Commonwealth Games. Hugh Jones had that huge run the other day in Peking or Beijing when he ran 2:10.36, so the English and the British have got plenty of top marathoners at the moment. Now let's have a look at this group. We've got DeCastella, Poli, Martin. That's Jama on the right. He's looking very comfortable. Jorgensen still in the group. Kerp still in the group. Pacheco still in the group. No real Janika still in the group. So
doesn't seem to be any change in that group yet.
18 miles, 1:25.30, and Glenn, that's well inside the world record.
Yes, but I think more interestingly, it indicates that mile was running 4:52, which I think would be slowest for the race. Now, there may have been a reason for that. Perhaps he's turned into the breeze or something, but without any other information to go on, that's...
Of the 1985 Chicago Marathon, Rob DeCastella still leading the second group. And surprisingly, Bruce, in that group, they've stuck together. No one has really dropped off the pace in that one.
No, and they'll probably stay like that for a while, I think, Dave. They've been running for a long time, but we're still a little bit away from the business end of the race. Their hope is that Jones will slow considerably, because they can't take 10 seconds a mile off him whilst he's running at 4:45 pace.
That's absolutely correct.
Somewhere along that, seems to be running very well, isn't he?
Somewhere along that straight stretch that we just saw Jones running along, I think we would have seen the 19-mile marker, but unfortunately it was obscured by spectators. So I think it's becoming fairly critical now what Jones' pace is.
Well, we've been told down the line that the group is 2.5 minutes behind him. So the interesting thing here is that Poli, Martin, Gomez and also DeCastella have split that group up. There was a gap of 15 metres. When we come back to it...
Yeah, I think we're going to get a great race almost all the way to the finish from that situation there.
So this group here, Dave, it has split up a bit. Now, Rob Blaze quickly got onto the DeCastella group, and I think Jorgensen might have gone off the back. You'd expect Pacheco and also Janika to go off the back of this group. Certainly Poley is right with DeCastella. There's DeCastella, Poley behind him. You can just see Roblay behind him. Gomez still there, and I think Ken Martin might be in the group. I haven't seen Kurt. No, I haven't seen Kurt for a little while. Have you, Len?
It's strung out in single file. He was still in the group a little while ago when they were running more spread out across the road. It's a bit hard to pick at the moment.
But you can see there's a definite break there.
There is a break.
Kurt there.
There's Janicki at the back of the group we can see.
And also Gomez, but Jorgensen's gone off the back.
Definitely, yes.
So that group's gone from about 8 to 5.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, where that group was running is about the point where Steve Jones made his move last year.
If Jones can finish like he did last year, we've got a world record with no worries at all. We've got about a 2:4.
Yeah.
But I'm certain he's not going to run his last 6 miles as quickly as he ran them last year, but he won't have to at this stage.
No, he just has to maintain as best he can, which has always been his race from the start. He must have known at that pace that there would come a time over the last stages of the race when he'd be very tired, and that's what it would be all about, just maintaining as best he can to the finish, and I think that's what he's doing now.
There's Poley sitting right on the heels of Rob DeCastella.
Poley's best time, Dave, 2:11.05.
Two only a few weeks apart.
So here's this remarkable Welshman, and he's really feeling it. You can just see the stress on his face at the moment. He's gone out at what looked to be a suicidal pace early. He'd gone through the half in 61.46, and now Dave, he's just got to try and hang on and hold his concentration. And if he can run his last 8 miles at around 4:50, 4:55, then he's going to win this race.
I think if he can run it at 5s, he's got to go very close to winning it. But it's a matter of concentration and form at this stage. And this is where the concentration gets so hard from having gone so early in the race. He must have been concentrating fiercely from very early in the race, because all he's had to think about that whole time is his own pace.
Is that a 20-mile mark?
That's the 20-mile mark, I think, 1:35.
So we'll get an idea of exactly what rate he's on. It looked to be the 20-mile mark. There's DeCastella. Now, Roblay looks to be right on his shoulder. He's from Djibouti. Of course, 8th in the Olympics and 3rd in the Great Hiroshima Marathon this year. And Poley is with him. Roblay's in the Olympic race and also in the race in...
And for the men, Steve Jones is in charge. He's on world record pace. He has been since the very beginning. There you see the world record, 2:07.12. If he runs at this pace, he will smash that record again. The question, of course, is can he hang on at this pace?
John, once you start to die in a marathon, it happens very quickly. It's almost like a head wound. It just sort of pops open all of a sudden. And Steve is looking very strong, however. Does not look at this stage like he's dying whatsoever. He's 1 minute and 30 seconds ahead of the pack in second place, which, as you said, includes some of the finest distance runners in all of the world in their top form. So he's making mincemeat of the competition, and this is tough competition.
Steve Jones on his way to try and run into the history books. And he looks like he's hurting a little bit more than he was about 5-10 minutes ago.
They say if you want to see what you look like 20 years from now, take a look at yourself after you've run a marathon, because all the body fluids and all the salt comes right out of your face and is etched in the lines on your face.
Even though the temperature is a cool 55 degrees with a 12-mile-an-hour breeze, it still is very important to take liquids throughout the race. And at times it can become a practiced art just to grab the water bottle while you're running this fast. Craig Masback has more on that.
Miles back, so that would indicate there has been an attempt by Benoit to break away.
In that aerial shot there, we saw Wrigley Field, which is the home of the Cubs in Chicago, and now his...
Well, Poley's gone, Dave, which is interesting. So it's only Roblay and Rob DeCastella. And when we looked at the pedigrees before the race, these were the 3 guys that you looked at, DeCastella, Roblay and Joan. So Poley's gone off the group.
I think there's runners not too far behind these blokes, or was that Deke's heels I could see flicking into the picture?
No, I've got a feeling that they're clear of the others. But
they may be.
We might get an idea in a moment, but Poley's certainly not as close as he was, and neither's Martin.
No, there does seem to be some gap, doesn't there?
Well, as they're running at the moment, Bruce, it's virtually in order of their personal best times. Steve Jones, of course, 2:08.05. Second place, DeCastella at 2:08.18. And, of course, Roblay, 2:08.26. So wearing the 1, 2, 3 singlets.
Yeah, of course, DeCastella's could be going for a big personal best here.
That's right, both these runners, in fact.
What do you think they're looking at the moment? 2.7.5, something like that?
Something
2.7?
like that, yeah. I think at this stage they're probably trying to look at Jones, and they're keen everything they can do running at Jones. I guess Rob might even be thinking that he let Jones get away a little easily last year, and has he done it again?
Rob Lay's a relaxed type of runner. The strange thing with him in the World Cup was how good he looked at the end of the race, yet he allowed Sala and also Nakayama to get away from him.
Yes, watching the race, his demeanour and his composure didn't seem to alter at all.
Steve Jones just grabbed a water bottle, and there he's grabbing another one, and doesn't appear to be drinking any. He's just pouring it on his legs. He just poured some on his neck. The first time he took water, Tony, was at the 7-mile mark. That could be a big mistake, even though it's cool.
It well could be, but these runners are so in touch with their own bodies and what their needs are that you think Steve Jones does know what he's doing on a day like this. I think also that a lot of these runners drink 12 to 18 ounces of fluid before the race even begins in order to so they don't have to break their stride and break their concentration at those early stations.
Back with the win.
I'm just not sure exactly at this stage how far they're behind, but they certainly haven't closed.
No, I discount that 2.5 minutes. I find it impossible to envisage that they dropped another minute from the halfway.
There's a 21 mile mark.
21 miles in about 1:40.25. So that mile pace is just over 5 minutes a mile, which is.
Benoit's back again, and the gap did close a little.
I think at this stage that's exactly what she has to do. You just can't allow a gap to open up.
Talking about Benoit's record in marathons, it really is an incredible one. 12 marathons and 7 wins, 2 times winner at Boston. But Kristensen obviously realising, as Len said, she won't let her get away from her, and that 10 or 15 metre gap, I think, is already closed.
I think Djama's he's getting away from DeCastella here a bit.
He has just run the slowest mile, the mile 21, 5 minutes, 2 seconds. So he is slowing down.
First time over 5 minutes in any mile of this race. And yet, he has such a commanding lead.
Let's wait for a little bit longer and see what happens as they move on.
Steve Jones.
You know, John, he goes through periods where his face seems contorted and he seems to be working very hard and maybe starting to get in a little bit of trouble. And the next minute, his face comes back and is very clear. He's still running very strongly. He ran a 5:02 mile, but it's not like he ran a 5:15 mile.
Kristensen, it appears, is coming back on Joan Benoit. Back in the...
Very sizable gap on Rob DeCastella.
Yes, and we saw when Rob took the drink some half a mile away ago that Rob Lay had pinched a bit of a break on him, and obviously Deeks is going through a patch where he's finding it hard to hang on. Rob Lay's probably accelerated here then because he looked very comfortable. He keeps looking back for Deeks. If he looks in front, he might see Jones.
That's right, yes. He must come into sight fairly soon, we would think. I just had a look at Jones's last 3 miles. They went 4:52, 4:55, 5:03. So he's definitely slowing down, but it's a question of how much he can hang on and how much Rob Lay can pick up. And then, you know, when he gets the incentive, if he does get him in sight, that gap will close very, very quickly.
Kristensen, some 5 minutes ago, was in all sorts of trouble as we go back to Jones, but she and Benoit are still having this enormous struggle. You can see DeCastella some 40 or 50 metres behind Rob Lay. Now, the rest of the group is well and truly gone. They're way back.
They're not inside at all.
So it's going to be tough for DeCastella now. He's got a great chance of running a personal best if he can hang on to his pace, but he's left on his own, and he's obviously... Rob Lay's put a pretty big space in him then, and not very much time, which is not all that good.
It's amazing to think that these two runners are running. Rob Lay's probably running around 2:07 pace. Rob's probably running about half a minute slower than that, and they're not yet in contention to win this race. It's just an indication of how well Jones has run, how bravely Jones has run.
So we've just been told that Jones's 22nd mile was at 5:07. So again, he slowed up by 4 seconds. Is that getting critical for him, 5:07?
Without knowing the exact gap back to Rob Lay, it's hard to tell. But certainly he's just continued that slowdown of a couple of seconds a mile, which indicates he'll be back by the finish of the race to maybe 5:15 mile pace. And
and crosses the finish line.
If Robles maintained the pace that he was running at early, which was probably just under 4:55 mile pace, that means he would be close to picking up 15 to 20 seconds a mile on Jones.
We're in constant touch with Chicago, so what we're going to try and find out right now is just how far Robles is behind Jones. That's going to give us an idea whether or not Robles has any chance of...
He has resigned himself, it seems to me, to second place, and that's quite a win, winning that pack race in second. Steve Jones took it out. He killed the rabbit before the 2 mile mark.
In fact, picking Jones up. It's impossible to tell looking at them from here. I mean, Robles looks very comfortable. That's the way he runs. Jones is looking a little more strained, but there's a 22...
The interesting thing, Bruce, we haven't seen Rosa Motta chasing a hat-trick of wins in the Chicago Marathon. We have not sighted her in the entire race.
Well, we didn't see Lisa Martin last year until about 50 metres from the finish, so maybe it'll be similar for Rosa this year. Robles is based mainly in France with also Ahmed Salah, who's running in New York next week. He won the World Cup this year, the race that Robles ran third in. They run quite a bit in France.
Yes, they do. Many of the African runners spend time in Italy, France. The Ethiopians do a lot of their training in the sports camps in the Soviet Union.
So Robles, of course, finished third in Hiroshima in the World Cup. But we all remember him, Bruce, from the Olympic Games. He finished in 8th place, which was creditable. He was only about, 30 seconds behind Rob DeCastella, who finished 5th.
It was an enormous improvement because just the year before he'd finished 47th in the race that Rob won, the World Championship. So he went from and also ran in the elite company to somebody who 8 miles of the race, and Martin passed her in that time. She's got to hope that Motta doesn't pick her off as well.
Same thing.
Well, so Jones is still looking very strong indeed.
Well, he's been running 5:03, 5:07 for his last 2 miles. We guess that Robles is running a little quicker, but not significantly quicker.
Well, if indeed that was the 22 mile mark that we saw back there, the gap was almost 2 minutes. So, in fact, that still gives Jones a fair bit of cushion with 4 miles to go. He's got to drop a long way.
30 seconds a mile, which is, unless Robles is going to run 4:40 for his last 4 miles, which is highly unlikely, then Jones is going to win this race. And we've got our fingers crossed that he can just maintain some form, because if he does, he's going to run the fastest time ever.
Well, he obviously had that set pattern for the race because he bounced the lead very early and he's just maintained it.
I wonder how Simeon Keegan's feeling right now, because he went with him for about 7 or 8 miles.
It hasn't been sighted since.
Well, I'd say he probably knows what a world record pace feels like, that's for sure.
Djama's proving that Hiroshima was no fluke and the Olympic Games no fluke. He's certainly such 1:57's the gap between Djama and also Jones, but it virtually works out to the same 2 minutes, which is 30 seconds a mile.
Just 1:50.41 there we saw. That was probably 23 miles. So Jones is still under 5:10 mile pace. That was about 5:09 that last mile. Just looking at Hiroshima, it was just a fantastic race where we had perhaps not the top 4 or 5 runners in the world, but so many of the rest. And I think there was a huge pack of about 30 still in contention at the 30k mark, and the times and performances in that race I think made it the outstanding race, certainly for depth of the year.
So Jones ran 5:06 for his last mile, and Djama is about a half a mile behind now. Well, can't see DeCastella in that shot, and hopefully he's that figure way back. So let's hope that Rob is continuing and can hang on, because he's still going to run a very fast time if he does.
Yep.
Well, that prediction, Bruce, after the race in London of Steve Jones, it looked as though he was spot on with that prediction of...
We'll take a break as we're on Lakeshore Drive. I hope that photographer gets out the way. What an idiot he is, standing in the way of a great man like this.
I'll just add a comment. I think, on my calculations, if Jones runs 5:10 miles to the finish, he's going to just miss the world best at this stage.
So we'll come back to follow the fortunes of Steve Jones and Started, Bruce, we posed the question, could the two best times be bettered in the men's and women's? And the way this is going at the moment, we're in for a great finish to this Chicago Marathon of 85.
Well, this is the critical part for Jones. As Lenny said just before the break, that if he continues to run at the pace he is, he's going to be almost spot on what Lopez ran earlier this year in Rotterdam. Benoit, on the other hand, we haven't had a split for a little while, but she's around about the 2:21. Now, there's still a half a mile between Robley, who's in second placing, and Jones, who's leading. So it means two things. One, they're running at the same pace, so Robley obviously can't beat Jones at this stage. And
I think mentally this is probably what she's wanted the whole race, to just be out on her own, running to the line.
So what about Jones' situation? And he's obviously hurting like hell after that early pace, and he's gone through 24 miles. He's getting within
1:55.42. It's really going to be touch and go, I think, and I think it could even depend on how conscious he is of how close he is to the record, how much. He's obviously getting a lot of encouragement from the crowd there, and that last mile I got approximately at 5:05, so that gives him a bit of a cushion on those 5:10s that he had to run, so it's going to be touch and go.
If it gets to an absolute desperate situation, he's probably capable of running his last half mile reasonably quickly, isn't he?
I think so. He still looks pretty strong. He's tired, but he's not losing form by any means, and it's just going to be an amazing run, I think. I mean, it's an amazing run no matter what he runs now, because to have gone out and run that first half so quickly.
Pretty done, and they've split up a field that had tremendous depth, and we're going to see a lot of stragglers coming in among the good runners, a lot of do-not finishers, I think, in this race. DeCastella, we're hoping he's continuing. He's never not finished a marathon. I'm sure he won't in this case, but Rob's got to try and hang on now to run under 2:10.
That battle for Lopez's time, the fact that this is a flat course is one thing that is in Steve Jones' favour, though, as he approaches this final stage of the race.
He hasn't got a big hill to get up, that's for sure.
No, there's a couple of little flyovers in the park, I think, where they just go over small rises, and interestingly enough, there's one theory that suggests that can be an advantage to runners, because you just change the muscle groups that are called into play to do the work ever so slightly, and that acts as a bit of that has a beneficial effect on your legs.
The other thing too, rankings are all important in athletic terms, and there's no doubt Lopez was going to be the #1 ranked marathoner this year before this race with his 2:7.12 in Rotterdam. Things might change after this with Jones's 2:8.16 and also a very fast run here as we see Lakeshore Drive.
I think it would be very hard to take the #1 ranking away from Steve Jones for the second year in a row if he... sorry, of course, #2 last year. It was a mental block, but it'd be very hard to take the #1 ranking for this year away from him.
He's won the two biggest commercial races now in New York.
He has in most of his last few marathons, I'd say.
He must be... This is the guy that ran 2:8.13 on a short course in 1981. He must be scratching his head and thinking, what's this Jones fellow all about? This is in a different league again, going out at 2:3.
Until that first 5 or 6 miles was pretty tough.
So both Jones and Benoit have got both their respective races won, as long as nothing incredible happens to either of them. And we'll see just what's going to happen to Steve Jones in just a moment as we take a break and try and bring him in for his second world's best in the Chicago Marathon for the second year in success.
16 pace, so that record's still touch and go. He's so close to it, I just believe he could possibly have one last effort.
So if he can run the next mile in around 5:15, it's going to be a dash over the 385 yards, if you can call it a dash.
That's right.
It's been an absolutely remarkable performance, whether he breaks Lopez's world record or not, because the split difference is going to be, well, there's 2:6.49 they're saying, so that's gives him still a 23-second cushion, but the negative split's not negative.
I think I'll go out on a limb here, though, Bruce, and say that finishing time's calculated on the average for the whole race, not what he's running now.
You can see how much he's hurting. But the fact that he went through in 61.46 and he's going to come home in 65 something or maybe not quite 66 is going to be an enormous difference. Something that we haven't seen before in the great fast races.
Yeah. I think, you know, this man's ready for any sort of race now. It's just a fantastic run. I think the record's almost immaterial when you see a bloke prepared to go out and run a major marathon in this manner. I just can't. I mean, we couldn't believe it when we saw it at the start, and we can't believe it now. He's just gone out and destroyed a world-class field, and he's run almost as fast as any man's ever run through the halfway point of a marathon. It's amazing.
Gee, Lenny, he's really hurting at the moment. He didn't take a drink stop there. This is a little rise up.
Here last year saw the same face on the same young man. 2:03, 15, 16, 17. It ticks away.
He's got to run around it.
And those photographers, they're unbelievable. They get so close.
Ridiculous. Unfortunately, they don't know exactly what it's like to run in a race like this. I'm sure to get so close, it's just foolhardy and silly.
I wouldn't bet that Steve Jones couldn't run across that lake at the moment, Bruce, but I just think he'd be disqualified, that's all.
He could walk across it, I'm sure. But this really is a Superman. I mean, Lopez is a magnificent runner, and it's very hard to compare. We're just so lucky to see two marathoners that are so great in the same period. You know, Rob DeCastella's an outstanding runner, a wonderful runner, but not even Rob at his absolute best could have done what Steve's done today.
I guess in a sense it's a pity that I mean the development of these big sponsored marathon race that would have been.
Well, Jones in fact went through the 25-mile mark in 2 hours and 55 seconds, so it really is a superhuman effort.
So that made that mile 5:13 then, which makes it a little bit better.
A couple of seconds, so.
Which helps him in his quest to break Lopez's record.
I reckon we should all be willing him on from here. I mean, as I keep saying, I think we've seen one of the greatest marathons that anyone's ever run, regardless of what his finishing time is exactly going to be. And
what she's done today is just re-established again who the queen of distance marathon running is.
Joan, the people at the finish line can sense it. He can feel it. And Jones is now trying to lower the hammer. You watch the clock ticking away. The time he's trying to beat was set by Carlos Lopez, 2:07:12. And now the crowd here, they know the world record for the marathon. They're cheering him on.
Look at the effort on his face again, John. This is a magnificent athlete who just gives everything he's got to. It's all on his face. He's turning off now. He's in the park. He's got less than a minute to go, one would think, and the crowd is really helping him on. Last year he was very close to then Alberto Salazar's world record. This year he's been by himself from the gun, dedicated to a world record performance, and Steve Jones looks like he's going to get it. It all depends on how far under he can go.
It'll be very, very close. For the last 3 miles, Jones has slowed down. He's looking around. He's got to be hurting. He ran the first part of this marathon. He ran the first part of this marathon extremely fast. And now, as he approaches the finish line, you can hear the roar of the crowd. 2:07:12 is the time he's trying to beat.
It's a long finishing stretch, John. It's a lot farther than it seems. It's very straight. It's about 300 meters.
The crowd here just heard the announcement that Jones has a chance to beat that record. Now they can see him.
It's going to be close.
He can see the finish line. He's beaten the very best in the marathon. No one's even close. The nearest competitor better than a minute or so back. And Jones is now, as he was last year, racing against the clock. It's just him and the roar of the crowd here at the finish line in Chicago.
John, it's going to be very close.
Watch the clock. Jones is about 150 meters from the finish line. Steve Jones, the crowd is on its feet. It'll be close. Unofficially, it would appear that Jones just missed the world mark. We'll have to get the official results, but Jones went to his leg speed there in the last 100 meters. Oh my.
Unbelievable. How can you run 26.2 miles and tie the world record? What a performance. What a performance.
Well, it's not over yet.
Congratulations, Steve Jones. What a courageous run. You said you didn't have much respect for that world record, and you really went out for it today.
Well, I've got a little bit more respect for it now because I realise just how hard it is, but Maybe if I'd slowed down a little bit in that first half, then I might have been a little bit under it but by the time I finished today. I came here to race. I told Bob Bright I was ready to race and I was ready for any eventuality. The hair took out very steady for the first 2 or 3 miles and I felt like I could maintain it, so I just carried on.
But you got out so fast, you must have seen the splits. You saw that at the half marathon, you were close to your personal best for the half marathon distance. Did you think about backing off a little bit?
Well, I think it's really tough to back off and try and pick up again later on. So I just felt I had to maintain it for as long as possible. I knew there was going to be a dying period. My legs were going to start cramping and it would get tough, but I just had to sort of hold it off as long as possible.
Now, last year after you won this race, you said that you didn't consider yourself a marathoner. You've now run 2 of the fastest 3 marathons of all time. Are you a marathoner?
I'm a runner. I'm still just a runner. I'll run any distance.
Well, you certainly ran this one very, very well. Congratulations, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Chris.